Welcome back to Ice Bath Sports. I'm Griff.
I'm Matt.
And today we are doing our first mock draft of this NFL season. We're going to be doing a bunch of these as the season progresses, but we figured we're at week 10. I think this is a good point to start our first mock draft.
For sure. And there's going to be a lot of mock drafts coming soon, coming months, sickening amount actually. So
yeah, I think this is updated as of week 10. Houston is on the clock at number 1, and if they have the number 1 pick, I would assume that Davis Mills is not the guy. Today I'm going to go with CJ Stroud as the quarterback. You could argue Bryce Young could be the number 1 pick. I'm going with CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that brings me to number 2 at the Carolina Panthers. Now the Panthers currently obviously have a huge need at quarterback, but they did draft
Matt Corral
last year, and he had that season-ending injury, so we don't know what they have in Matt Corral yet, which puts them in a predicament here. But I don't see how you pass up on Bryce Young, generational talent at quarterback. Going Bryce Young here.
Yeah, I like that pick. Like I said, you could argue Bryce Young at number 1. It brings us to Vegas here. Man, this team needs a lot of help pretty much everywhere. And, getting another edge rusher would not hurt on the opposite side of Max Crosby. I know they have Chandler Jones now. Don't know how long he'll be around. You could go IDL. I am going to go with an offensive tackle, though. I think you need to protect Derek Carr if he is your guy. And right now, my number 1 offensive tackle is Paris Johnson. I know Peter Skoronski's very good. I love the athleticism of Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. And, Vegas isn't the best at drafting. I think this is a little bit of a reach. But I'm going to go with Paris Johnson Jr. with the pick there.
Very Las Vegas-esque pick.
Yes, that's kind of my thought process as well. Got to keep it a little realistic.
And Pittsburgh's watering their mouths right now, watering at the mouth, because they have T.J. Watt, and they're going to add another incredible pass rusher in Will Anderson. That is my pick for Pittsburgh. They have their quarterback. They have Kenny Pickett, who I think is the guy. He's had his growing pains so far, but give me Will Anderson right here. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, Will Anderson's a stud. I think that's a really, really good pick for Pittsburgh. That brings me to Detroit, and quarterback is definitely a need. You could cut Jared Goff, but at the same time, I don't think Will Levis is as good of a prospect as many people think. Don't get me wrong. I think he has a lot of traits of a good NFL quarterback, especially as a rookie coming in. I'm going to pass on quarterback here. And I'm going to give the Lions an edge rusher as well. Back-to-back years taking an edge rusher here. I'm going to go with Myles Murphy out of Clemson. Pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson, and I think that adds a lot of firepower to that defense. Myles Murphy's looking like a really, really good prospect.
Yeah, and now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars here, and this is a team. They've had a lot of high round draft picks. They've had Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall. They have Trevon Walker, number 1 overall. So you got quarterback, edge, both not really needs. They got Josh Allen, Trevon Walker, but I think they could use some secondary help. And a guy I'm really high on is Kelee Ringo, and I think that this would be a great pick for Jacksonville's secondary. You saw how a rookie can really improve the secondary. With the Jets taking Ahmad Gardner, sauce, baby. And I think the same situation would be for Ringo in Jacksonville here. So I have Ringo.
Yeah, I like Ringo a lot. I think he's definitely the best corner in this class. Not much to not like about him. Now we got the Cardinals here. Could use a corner. Joey Porter is very interesting. He's rising up a lot of draft boards right now. Cam Smith is still my number 2 corner out of South Carolina. Clark Phillips, I can't see being a first rounder. I think he's primarily a slot corner, and I can't see a team really wasting a pick there on a slot corner. But my pick for the Cardinals is going to be a quite interesting one here. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson.
Ooh.
I think Bijan Robinson is going to be a better back in the NFL than he is in college, and he's already a great college back. Bijan Robinson is going to provide a huge spark to that offense. You pair him up with Kyler Murray. You have DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. I think you just keep building this offense, and you kind of build up the defense through free agency.
I like it. And that brings us to Chicago. And Chicago is a team that has been on the up and coming as of the past couple of weeks, and Justin Fields really looks like their guy. But one thing that I think they could improve on is getting Justin Fields some better protection. Giving him a little more time in the pocket so he's not relying as much on his legs. And I think this is where Peter Skoronski comes in. And I think Peter Skoronski would be a great fit here in Chicago.
Yeah, Peter Skoronski, you could argue, is the best tackle in the class, and I could see why. Personally, I just like Paris Johnson, and I kind of wanted to mix it up because I've seen Skoronski going earlier in a lot of mocks, and kind of wanted to keep it a little different because you never really know in the NFL. That brings us to Green Bay, and this team is all over the place right now. I don't know what's going on in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is looking not great, but then again, he's got no team around them. So is this the year that they go with a wide receiver? It really should be, and that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But at the same time, is Jordan Love your future? You've got Will Levis sitting right here, which is a guy that could definitely sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year if Rodgers does in fact return. I'm kind of torn between Levis and going wide receiver here. But for the sake of this, I'm going to say that the team has faith in Jordan Love, which they should. They took him in the first round. And that Aaron Rodgers will be there next year. You got to put receivers around him. I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson out of TCU. Quentin Johnson, I think, is the best receiver in this class. He's just height, weight, speed. I think it's a perfect fit for Green Bay.
So that brings me to Philadelphia at pick 10. And my Eagles definitely could use some help in the secondary because you got James Bradbury, who's a 1-year rental. He's going to demand a huge contract going into next year. You have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who you traded for, but between him and Slay, that's not nearly enough depth in that secondary. However, this is a team that values the pass rush, and I think there's one guy left on this board that really, would fit the mold of a Philadelphia Eagles draft pick. That's Brian Bryce. You have Robert Quinn, who you trade for. He's up there in age. Brandon Graham's way up there in age. You got Derek Barnett coming off a really bad injury. And, you draft Jordan Davis this year. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, both, I believe, on 1-year deals. You need to add some more depth to that D-line, which has been a staple of the Philadelphia Eagles. And Brian Bryce here does so. Yeah,
I love that pick. Brian Bryce is just a very, very strong IDL, but he could also play on the edge.
Right.
Brian Bryce is going to be shooting up a lot of draft boards. Him and Miles Murphy, really strong D-line at Clemson. That brings us to number 11 with Seattle. Going into the season, I think a lot of people thought Seattle was going to be drafting quarterback. Well, Geno Smith, I don't know what happened, but he's looking like a stud now. And Seattle, I think they're going to go in a little bit of a different direction right now. If Geno Smith could keep it up, there's no reason why he shouldn't be on the team next year. I'm going to build up this D-line and get what could be he's probably a top 3 talent in this class. I'm going to go with Jalen Carter. I think the fall of Jalen Carter stops there. The only reason why he's going to fall is just because big D tackles. I mean, I don't think there's really a need to draft him inside the top 10. But Jalen Carter's going to be a stud.
Yeah, and now we got pick 12. We got the Lions, and Will Levis has fallen a little bit. The Lions still need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Why not pick Will Levis here? I despite what Griffin said earlier, I like Will Levis. I think he is going to be a great NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be a lot better in the NFL than he was in college. I think he has all of the intangibles to be an NFL great, a top 10 quarterback. And I think the Lions get a good one here to replace Jared Goff.
Yeah, I like that pick. If the Lions don't take him with their first pick and he still lands to them at pick 11 or pick 12, I think they jump all over that. I like that a lot. Now that brings us to the Houston Texans again, who we took C.J. Stroud at number 1.
I think there's a clear pick here, not to influence your pick at all, but
yeah, I do believe there is a clear pick as well. You have to build up that wide receiver room. And you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba sitting right there. You got to pair him up with his college teammate of C.J. Stroud, and hopefully you're getting John Mechie back next year, which I hope he makes a full recovery. Seems like he will. Shout out to John Mechie. What a stud. But yeah, we've got to go Jackson Smith and Jigba here.
Bring us to the Indianapolis Colts at 14. If you listen to the podcast this week, you know that we think that the Indianapolis Colts are a mess. Like, a disaster right now. You hire a head coach with no prior head coaching experience above the high school level. And, you know, they really have not had any luck with quarterbacks with all of these one-year rentals. But I do think they'll go quarterback here. I think they finally commit to one through the draft and start to rebuild a little bit. Now you got Anthony Richardson here, who's really athletic, but has you know, a lot of intangibles that you look for in a quarterback, but he's really unpolished. I think they're going to go with the more polished guy who can step in and win them some games day one. That's going to be Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee, who I think is going to be the Heisman winner.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me about Hendon Hooker is that he's going to be 25.
Right.
He is old, but at the same time, like you said, he is more polished, and I think he kind of fits the mold of what Indy should look to do. You kind of, I think in that sort of offense, you need a mobile quarterback that's just going to help out Jonathan Taylor in the run game more, and I think Hendon Hooker is a great pick there. That brings us to the Falcons. You know, they could go a lot of different ways. They're probably also in the market for a quarterback. Could definitely use an edge rusher. But I'm going to go with another corner here. I'm going to take Joey Porter Jr. to get on the opposite side of A.J. Terrell. Really lock up that secondary. Get them a really scary secondary, I think. And I think Joey Porter is definitely one of the best corners in this draft. He's been rising up draft boards a lot. So that is my pick, though.
I really like that pick. Now we have Washington, who this selection right here perplexes me a lot because Washington has a quarterback in Carson Wentz, but are they committed to them is the big question. You know, you have some needs on that team, but you also have some positions that are clearly settled. Like that defensive line is definitely one of their strengths. They're getting Chase Young back pretty soon, so they don't need to improve the defensive line. That receiving core looks solid. I don't know. I almost want to go Anthony Richardson here as a guy that they can take early. Quarterbacks always go early. You can develop him behind Carson Wentz, kind of show Carson the writing on the wall. But maybe you give Carson a little time. Maybe you go and try to protect him a little bit.
Or Sam Howell, the guy.
Yeah, or Sam Howell. You got him too. They drafted him. I think you aim to build that offensive line up before you really settle that quarterback debacle. And I think you go Broderick Jones here out of Georgia.
Yeah, I like the pick. Broderick Jones is a really strong tackle. He's definitely going to bully a lot of defensive ends. So I like that pick. All right, New England's up on the clock. Definitely could see wide receiver going here. But at the same time, I don't know if they would go another wide receiver in the first round after what happened with N'Keal Harry.
Correct, yeah.
They could also use a linebacker. Could always go tackle too. For the sake of this, I'm going to go with a linebacker. I'm going to go with Noah Sewell.
Ooh, I love that pick.
I love that pick. I like Noah Sewell a ton, and I think he's extremely underrated coming into this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he provides the New England defense with a spark plug. I think he's a really strong linebacker. Playing coverage. Yeah, he's good at stopping the run. He's good at a lot of things.
And now we have the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 18. And the Bengals... they've had some offensive line issues, but the offensive line has been playing kind of on and off, if you ask me.
Right. I completely agree.
Their defense is a little questionable. You got a guy like Eli Apple in the secondary starting. I think that goes to show that that's a area that you need to improve on.
Yeah.
So I really want to go Clark Phillips here. But I don't see them passing on Cam Smith, so I'm going to take Cam Smith for the Bengals.
Yeah, I think Cam Smith is just a really, really good pick. You could argue he's probably the second best corner in the draft. Him and Joey Porter, probably 2A, 2B. I think Keely Ringo is just a tier above them. Now that brings us to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think this is a spot where you got to plan for the retirement of Tom Brady. You've got Kyle Trask as your backup, and he's probably not an answer. So we're going to go with one of the younger quarterbacks in this draft to develop, even if Brady's back for another year, to develop under him. Completely different style, but he's definitely got to improve as a passer, and being behind Tom Brady, I think, could do that a lot. We're going to bring in Anthony Richardson out of Florida.
Stays in state, too.
He does stay in state, and they get another Florida quarterback. I mean, they have Kyle Trask, like I said. But, the quarterbacks are kind of flying off now.
Now we got the Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos are another tough team to pick for, if you ask me. They looked good. They had a great defense, but then all of a sudden they go and they trade Bradley Chubb. So now you have a hole at the edge position.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Their offense has been really subpar, but I don't really know how you improve many positions aside from quarterback. But you look at the quarterbacks, and there's not really many worth taking at this pick.
Especially after you give Russell Wilson the huge contract. You just can't.
Yeah, so I think you got to look at edge here. And one guy I really like, he's on a great defense, it's Nolan Smith.
I love Nolan Smith. He just suffered a season-ending injury, but he should be back by the whole draft process.
Right. Give me Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I love Nolan Smith off the edge. He's one of my favorite edge rushers in this class. That brings us to the Chargers at 21. And you could go a lot of different directions with the Chargers here. You could always bring in another receiver. I mean, Keenan Allen's been always banged up now. The hamstring's just been nagging him on year in and year out. You got Mike Williams still. I don't know if wide receivers necessarily their biggest need. I think they could use some help on the D-line, though. And I'm going to go with Jervin Dexter out of Florida.
Yeah, that's one guy that stood out to me when you clicked on that.
Jervin Dexter, I think, is just built to be a Charger. I think it's one of those guys where I see the Chargers, and almost every time I've thought about taking Jervin Dexter there. I think it really builds up the D-line and helps stop the run, and he could get to the passer a bit too.
One guy that I really like here, Baltimore obviously weak in their receiving core, and Jordan Addison's started to fall in this draft. I think it's about time he goes. I know they took Rashad Bateman a couple of years ago in the first. They're going to go another first-round wide receiver, Jordan Addison.
I like that a lot.
Got to get Lamar some help, because they will resign him. And now you got Rashad Bateman, Dever Duvernay, Jordan Addison, and Addison's a nice complement to that receiving core of a bunch of fast guys.
I agree. Now that brings us to the Titans, and the Titans could definitely use someone off the edge. But you know what? I'm gonna have to get some more protection for whoever's back there at quarterback, whether it is Malik Willis next year or still Ryan Tannehill. I'm gonna get another tackle, and we're gonna go with Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. I think he might be one of the youngest tackles in the class, but he's already looking like he's one of the more polished pass blockers. He's kind of an athletic freak, and I think Olu Fashanu is going to go. I think he's definitely a first-round pick this year.
That brings us to the Seattle Seahawks, who went Jalen Carter, pick 11, so they beefed up their defensive line a little bit. Their secondary is full of a lot of young talent. Just clicking around here, seeing who's available. I think they should probably go linebacker. You got Jordan Brooks back there, but you need somebody else. I'm a big fan of Toto. Is that his name?
Yeah, Henry Toto.
Yeah, I'm not a huge confident on how to pronounce that, but I think I got to go Trenton Simpson.
Yeah,
out of Clemson. I don't see how you pass on him here.
I think Trenton Simpson's the clear pick for them. They've been so bad at stopping tight ends. You need some help there. Now that brings up my New York Jets.
Yeah,
and you could go a couple different directions. I like the interior of the O-line a lot. You got Elijah Vera Tucker coming back next year. You got Laken Tomlinson. I don't think that's where they focus. You could get another edge rusher. I think the defense is so good to where you don't really have to beef it up right now in the first round. Michael Mayer is there, and he's a stud tight end. Now, the Jets have Conklin and CJ Uzoma. So I don't know how realistic that is. I think the Jets go with offensive tackle here, and we go with one of my favorite players in this entire draft, Jalen Duncan out of Maryland. There's a lot of tape from last year's game against Michigan where he absolutely shut down Aiden Hutchinson, and that was one of the only times Aiden Hutchinson was shut down the entire season. So Jalen Duncan in pass coverage looks unbelievable, and I can't believe he's ranked so low. It wouldn't shock me if he shoots up the rankings.
Yeah, I really like that pick. So now we got Dallas, pick 26. Dallas has had an insane defense. Their offensive line has looked great. Their receiving core is solid. There's rumors they might get Odell. I'm not sure who exactly to go here. You got Dalton Schultz at tight end. Michael Mayer, I think tight ends just aren't as valued as they used to be. You got Isaiah Foskey still there.
I like Foskey a lot.
I like Foskey. I also like Clark Phillips to pair with Trayvon Diggs, but I got to go Foskey here.
Yeah, get somebody else off the edge with Micah Parsons.
And DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah. That would be a pretty scary D-line. So now that brings us to the Giants. And at least quarterback is their top need. We're completely ignoring that. I think Daniel Jones is just played. He's played himself into another contract with this team. I think they could still use some work on the interior of the offensive line. They could definitely use some linebacker help. And at the same time, they're so weak at wide receiver right now. But Michael Mayer's there. Do you like Michael Mayer as the pick?
I love Michael Mayer as a pick here for the Giants, just because he is the type of guy that he can transform that offense, because not only can he help in the run game, blocking for
he is a very good blocking tight end
or blocking for Daniel Jones, because both are very versatile, but he can help in the receiving game too. And he adds another receiver on top of being able to help that run game. So I think you could really expand the offense here.
Yeah,
with a guy like Mayer.
Michael Mayer's definitely the pick. He reminds me a lot of Kelsey. Very good run blocker, and good as a receiver too. Pair him with Daniel Bellinger, and you have two solid tight ends.
Yeah. Speaking of Kelsey, now we got the Chiefs. Now the Chiefs, I got to go Clark Phillips here. I think they could use some more depth in their secondary, beef that secondary up a little bit. They've been hurting a little bit ever since they lost Tyrann Mathieu. I think Clark Phillips out of Utah is a great corner. I think he has a lot of potential. Give me Phillips here.
Yeah, I like that Phillips pick a lot. Now that brings us to the Minnesota Vikings. And, man, I don't know what to do here. I'm leaning towards edge rusher. Could always get some help in the secondary, but outside of, I think all the first round talent corners are pretty much gone now. Eli Ricks, you could argue, but he looked a little shaky so far this year at Alabama. I'm gonna go with an edge rusher, and I'm gonna go with a guy that I like a lot. I'm gonna go with BJ Ojulari out of LSU.
Love that pick. I think Ojulari has everything that he needs to be. He has all the tools in his toolbox to be an elite edge rusher at the pro level.
Yeah.
That brings us to the Bills. And what do you give what do you get for a team that really has a lot going for them already? They have a bunch of offensive weapons. They have a really, really solid defense.
And they have a really solid O-line.
They do. But I think running back might be the pick for them here. You trade for Naheem Hines, but he's receiving back. Devin Singletary, I mean, he's not really your guy. James Cook, you got him, but he hasn't really showed many flashes. I think you got to go Jahmyr Gibbs here out of Bama.
I absolutely love that pick. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just a stud. Now that brings us back to the Eagles, who already took Brian Breezy. Also, this is the last pick of the first round. There's a 30-second pick because this thing's not updated, but the Dolphins did lose their pick. Yeah. So that pick over here is the first pick of the second round.
Yep.
So we are finishing it off with the Eagles, and I am going to let Matt take this one because he is an Eagles fan. It would only be right.
All right. As I mentioned, we do need some help in the secondary. So I go and I look at the corners available. there's one that sticks out to me that I'm a huge fan of. Safeties, I know you got Antonio Johnson, you got Brian Branch, Jordan Battle. I think you can get a guy like Battle in the second round. One guy, they'll reach for him a little bit, is Eli Ricks. I love Eli Ricks out of Bama. I think he could really, really be a great complement to Darius Slay out there on the perimeter. Give me Eli Ricks here.
Yeah, I love that. I have Eli Ricks as a first-round grade as well. A lot could argue that his struggles at Bama have been decreasing his draft stock a bit, but I still think he's a great option there. And with the first pick of the second round, I'm just going to finish it off so we could see the full thing. First pick of the second round, it brings us back to the Texans, and you still need O-line. You probably need an edge rusher.
They desperately need an edge rusher.
And one of the guys that I really like, I'm a big Andre Carter guy, but I'm going to go with Felix Nduke-Uzomah here out of Kansas State. He's been flying up draft boards, and he's looked really good.
That's a steal for the second round.
Yeah. So, just a quick recap. I mean, we'll scroll through. We got some quarterbacks flying off early. We had, all these ads popping up, man. We had Will Levis falling a little bit, still falling into the lap of the Lions, who did pass on him early on to take Myles Murphy.
Yeah.
And we got Bijan Robinson going in the top 10 to the Cardinals. I think that's just a beautiful fit.
I think it's a bold pick, too.
I think it is a very bold pick, especially we've seen teams kind of shy away from taking running backs early. I just think Bijan Robinson's built different. But yeah, that'll pretty much wrap up what we've got for the our first mock draft. And leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys want to see more of this. We'll definitely be doing more throughout the rest of the season and all through the off season. Next video, we will have a face cam up, but kind of died right before this, so we're kind of out of luck right now. But yeah, be sure to subscribe.
Check us
leave
out
your
on
feedback.
social medias.
Yeah, check us out on socials. IcePath Sports on Instagram and TikTok. At IcePath Pod on Twitter. Links in the description. And as always, stay cool.